Hello and welcome to Smart Chiropractor. I'm Dr. Jeff Langmaid here with Dr. Jason Deitch, where every week in 30 minutes, we break down how you can become a smart chiropractor. For us, that's creating sustainable and predictable income for your practice. We believe that's part of having a payday practice. And today is episode 10, the final episode of season number 1 of the Smart Chiropractor. We are talking about why your patient referrals aren't enough. We're going to discuss something you might not have thought about yet, which is building a professional network of individuals who refer into your practice that you co-manage patients with. They're complementary to what you do. And really, this is a foundational element of having a smart chiropractic practice. It's a piece of marketing. This is going to put the bow on everything that we've discussed throughout season number 1. And let's start right there. When we talk about professional networks, what does that mean to you?
You know, professional networks are strategically thinking about who the people your patients should be seeing complementary to the care you provide. So we're not saying car wash people, there's plenty of people they see, but relative to the care you provide and the service and the conversations you're having with people. There's, I guess one way of thinking about it is who has your ideal patient in their office or their practice. And that's one of the ways to think about the likely reciprocity that you have their patients in your office or your practice. If I ask somebody, who's your favorite patient in your practice, right? This episode's about why your patient referrals are not enough. If I asked you who your favorite 5, favorite 2, favorite 1 patient is in your practice, if people think about it for just a moment, I'm going to bet that most people would choose somebody who is probably the largest referrer, right? Oh, Mary, she sends everyone to us. She's my favorite. And really the professional network idea is, how do you strategically put together a team of people that best serves your community, your patients, and build the appropriate legal cross-referral mechanisms so ultimately you are serving your people best. That's really what a professional network is. We talk about, you hear about sort of the fantasy of, we work with other professionals for your benefit. Hospitals sometimes do it. They're like, the anesthesiologist talks to the surgeon, talks to the general physician, talks to the, right? And they coordinate your care. This is sort of the, other side, the non-pharmacological side of that. Who is the ultimate team of professionals that many, if not most, of your people could and should be seeing? And do those people have patients, clients who probably should be in your practice too? You almost think of it as like a team, like a roster. You could almost fill out, acupuncturist, massage therapist, personal trainer, on and on and on. And, ultimately, we are at our best when we're most generous, when we're serving people based on their needs, not ours. And that's really the concept of the professional network, is to put together a team that's going to be of best service to your clients.
I love the way you put that. I'll go a different direction and say there's also a defensive aspect of this, which is this. If you are choosing to ignore the primary care physicians in your community or the internal medicine physicians, et cetera, you're really hurting yourself, because what's going to happen eventually is many of your patients are going to go see one of those individuals at some point in time. And why wouldn't you direct them to somebody who's friendly to you? Because we've all heard this. We've all had patients that were our best patients that came back eventually and said, you know what? My blah, blah, blah told me to not come back and see you, but I came back anyway, doc, because I know. And for every one of those, you're probably losing 10 that you don't know about, because they're listening to bad advice quite often. But there is a defensive aspect to building the relationship that, yes, at the bare minimum, you are preventing loss. you are playing some professional defense, and in a way that actually is in the best interest of the patient, because you're not relying on the ignorance or the misunderstanding of somebody else that might have, in the patient's eyes, a higher cultural authority than you. You're able to mitigate that.
I'm embarrassed to tell you that there's more times than I'd like to admit that, in practice, I'd go to my front desk staff. I go, hey, I haven't seen so-and-so in a while. Where have they been? And I'd even get on the phone with that person, or my staff would get on the phone with that person. They'd go, oh, you remember when I asked you for a referral to a massage therapist and You didn't give me one? Well, I went down the street to a massage therapist, and you know what they told me? It's a muscle problem. And they spent an entire hour with me working that muscle out, and wouldn't you know it, I'm feeling good. So thanks, doc. I'll call you when it hurts again.
Yeah, building the complementary nature and understanding, right? So I look at this from a couple different aspects. There's really a clinical aspect and a business aspect. From a clinical aspect, it is if somebody's taken the opportunity, you've spent all this effort, energy in marketing, and a patient comes in, they know, trust, and like you, built the rapport, you've done everything right. How dare you clinically not give the patient the best option? You are doing them a disservice by not letting them know of the individuals that you'd go to yourself. Yeah. Or at the bare minimum, let them know where you wouldn't go to yourself. But ideally, you're going to be proactive and positive about it, which is a clinical aspect. And then there's the business aspect of it's going to help your business grow through reciprocity and through the defense of not having them go to somebody who's going to discourage the continued care in your office. And it plays both ways. And I don't think that no matter what type of practice you have, this applies to you. Having your professional network of the complementary providers that you know, trust, and like yields dividends for years and decades to come. Because not only are your patients in their practice, but it also gives you, again, the opportunity to showcase that you're not an island. And it deepens the connection and roots that you have in the community in your patient's mind when you are offering services. And I'll be very clear about one aspect of this. I'm not saying at all that when a patient comes in, you want to say, hey, you know what? You should go see this primary care doctor if they don't need it. What I am saying is that if you understand that they don't have a primary care doctor, then that's a perfect opportunity for you to say, hey, if and when you need somebody, I recommend Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones. Now, I can tell you from my experience, 99% of the patients aren't going to remember that at that moment you said Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones. But what they will do is remember that you made a recommendation. They'll call 3 months, 3 years, 3 weeks later and say, hey, Dr. Langmaid recommended somebody, Jeff recommended somebody, I don't know who they were. And if you build this out correctly, your front desk staff will know who you would have recommended. They'll say, let me look at the list. Dr. Smith or Dr. Jones are who we love and work with all the time. Great. And now you built some of that reciprocity.
There's so many different ways to implement the idea. So the first thing is, what's the idea? The idea is that you've got a team of like-minded health professionals that have a professional agreement, right? I'm not going to interfere with your doctor-patient relationship like the massage therapist did and plenty of others. I went to my doctor, they wrote me a prescription, they said I'm fine, it's not a sub thing you talked about, right? Okay, whatever. I mean, you just get frustrated, right? So there's that part of building the team. The second part is, okay, well, what do you do with the team? Like, how is that good for me? I know it's good for them. You can think of things, either, as you said, sort of reactively, like when somebody asks, at least you've got an answer. I made too many mistakes. I learned the hard way. Do you know a good massage therapist? Listen, I don't mind bluntly saying early in my career, I had such a scarcity mindset that I did plenty of stupid things. One, I'd be like, you don't need a massage therapist. This will work, right? So already they're like, I asked you for one. Yeah. I think I do need one. So my arrogance of like, no, you don't understand. This is going to work. It's not a muscle problem, backfired. So by having relationships with other professionals, and when people ask, knowing in this defensive way, if I refer to them, I know they're not going to steal the patient or interfere with so that's a brilliant idea. So that's a reactive way to do it. There's also the proactive way to do it. And proactive also doesn't mean that everybody who comes in goes, okay, go see these 12 people too. But it does mean that you work together in different coordinated ways. I'll give you a good example. My chiropractor here in town, great friend, used to work with me. He's got a great relationship, in fact, there's a regenerative orthopedist. My father owns a practice, the brand's Regenex. They do stem cell services that basically help people avoid drugs, avoid surgery naturally. If I told you to close your eyes and listen to this osteopath speak, I promise you couldn't tell if he was a chiropractor or medical doctor or osteopath. The way they speak is the same. They have the same message, same everything, right? So the difference is their solution is orthobiologics, which is using either your blood or your stem cells to heal the damage to the tissue. Now, that's obviously not chiropractic, but if you have, my chiropractor has people that come in and go, I got an MRI, looks like there's some severe damage. My GP says I should go to the surgeon. I had a couple steroid shots, or they're recommending steroid shots. I'm facing surgery. What should I do? One option is to say, well, let's go through a series of visits and see how things improve. But sometimes it's gotten too far. They're like surgical candidates. And so he's built a relationship with another local professional who specializes, and their network, their agreement is the understanding, and this is not quid pro quo, so this is legal and appropriate because people always have their choice and there's no exchange of money. It is being of service to the patient or the person. When somebody comes in and faces surgery, instead of the scarcity mindset of, oh my goodness, if I send them somewhere else, I will lose them, he's actually turned it around and said, if I serve them based on their needs and make that referral to that doctor, not only am I doing that person a favor, but I have the kind of relationship, and this is the kind of doctor I know refers to chiropractors for rehab care after those procedures. So again, it's legal, it's legit because you're focusing on what a person needs, but somewhere they don't have that I'm going to lose the patient. They're actually saying, oh, I have a strong degree of confidence, obviously assuming it's medically appropriate, in most cases it is, that doctor is going to refer them back to me, so everybody wins. Patient gets the care they need, doctor gets the referral, which, how nice would it be if other doctors did the same thing and said, oh, you need to see a chiropractor, let me refer you over to Dr. So-and-so, because it's the right thing to do, knowing you're not just going to steal them, you're going to be grateful, refer back if appropriate, and refer someone new because you respect and appreciate that ongoing benefit of the relationship. Again, let's be clear, this is all about making sure you are doing the right thing ethically, following laws and guidelines, shouldn't be an exchange of money necessarily, but it's certainly true that people who come to us oftentimes need other care, either instead of and/or in addition to ours. We are at our best. We actually build more trust, like you said. We build more trust with the client, even if they never come back to us again. There's so much gratitude that you directed them in a non-selfish way to get the help they need. They will be a referral source even if they don't come back in the future.
Yeah, it gets down to, I say, finding your dance partners, right? It's really finding the people that actually resonate with you. Hey, it might be there might be 300 primary cares, and you're like, man, these are all doing care that is not incongruent. They're not, but your goal is to find two, right? One or two, and that's the whole thing. And there's so many times, I'll kind of bring it to the extreme in the surgical realm where you talk to docs, and docs watching and listening might be thinking, I ask this question of docs all the time. The doc that you refer to for a surgical evaluation, have you ever met them? 90% of the time, the answer is no. And it's like, that seems a little weird. And 10% of the time, or 9 of the remaining 10%, it's, well, like one time and they were kind of a jerk. And, it's very rare that I've had the response of, oh yeah, me and Jim, we know each other, we work. It's like, well, the patient is put their trust in you. And anybody that goes up or downstream, depending upon the way you look at it, from you as the chiropractor's office, it's a direct reflection of who you are and what you do. And, this is, we're fortunate where there is enough competition, so you don't have to default to, well, that's the sign I drive by on the way to my practice, which is how so many chiropractors build not professional networks, but just if they happen to be asked, they just think about with the sign that they drove by with no connection, no established protocols, and not that it needs to be super formal. But gosh, I would hope that you'd have the opportunity to know the person at least a little bit. Shoot them a text message, a phone call. Do you have any sort of relationship there? Because as you said, it's not about the exchange of money, but we also understand that there's revenue to be generated based upon whatever services are rendered. And that is, beyond what is obvious, which is the patient care primarily, these are still, it's healthcare business. So there is a bit of reciprocity built into it, or a bit of, hey, if you're sending X amount of people, it could be just 5 a year. It doesn't have to be a big number, referred into whoever it might be. You should have a relationship there. It's going to, ironically, it's going to yield back to better patient care, because if they hit a stumbling block or have a question, oh, let me just hit up Jason. We didn't get that. We didn't get this. We didn't get that. Let me see, or let me ask them a question about how far have they progressed. And if you have no relationship, you're leaving the patient out to dry in a new provider's office that might not have all the info, might need more info, and might actually benefit in an ideal world with a professional network, values what you will let them know about the patient history for them to help the patient in a better manner.
You can do the math in so many different ways that this becomes a complete benefit. Obviously, again, we've sort of hopefully addressed it's the right thing to do for your client, your patient, however you want to refer to them. The question is, well, that takes work. I have to meet people, I have to connect with them, I have to, take them to lunch, dinner. You can keep it as simple or as complex as you'd like to. But think about the math. What if there were 10 different professionals on your network, and each of them, through conversation and through them receiving referrals from you, going every time they have somebody, because they've now been interested in learning, well, who should I be referring back to you? They've learned that, they've been curious. How difficult would it be to have a variety of professional referrals consistently coming month after month after month? Because again, like you said, your values align. Your value is, let's do what's best for the patient, for the client. If that's the case, you've got hundreds, but pick 10, pick 12. They're all going to have at least a person in their practice once a month that is appropriate for them to refer to you. The question becomes, why aren't they? The answer is, because you're not. Who's going to go first? So, that's simple math to make this thing worth it. How much easier would your practice be if you had, and we all know, in priority hierarchy order, the least welcome new patient is a deal shopper. The best is somebody, or the next level is probably somebody who's been following you on social media. I've been watching your videos, seeing your newsletters, thank you. Next is a patient referral. Oh, my cousin, my wife, my husband, my whoever has come to see you. But when it's a professional referral, they're not shopping around. You make a referral to a stem cell specialist, they don't go, well, who else is there? They're like, this is your guy, this is your doc, this is who you recommend, I'm going. So it becomes not only a referral, but an easier referral because they're there with the endorsement. The other sort of more exciting parts of all this, the places you can go is, as we've been talking in this entire series about social media, about email, about social media, about Testimonial Tuesday, Friday favorites, having a network of professionals locally that you're cross-referring to is also your team to make it easier to generate more content and to expand the distribution of the content you create. We talked about it specifically on a previous episode about Friday favorites. Just use that as an example. If I do interviews with each of those professionals that are my favorites in each category, the likelihood of them sharing me with their audience is extremely high. Now, you want to take that next level. For example, my chiropractor here does frequently do Facebook Lives with that doctor, and it's like a talk radio show together, and they're both talking to both of their audiences. That immediately not only expands who you're speaking to, but it expands who you're speaking to with the endorsement of that doctor and vice versa. It becomes a reciprocal, fair win-win. Let my people learn more about you. Let your people learn more about me. Wherever the chips fall, the chips fall. We're doing the right thing because it's the right thing. If you reproduce that multiple times, in time, some people, they join like BNI, the business network, right? Everybody's like, if you've got a referral from an attorney, a realtor, artist, whatever it is, I'm your one, right? And it works. Imagine if you did that actually with health professionals who, it's not a realtor who randomly saw somebody who's got some back pain and going, oh, you should call my chiropractor. But it was a stem cell specialist who Everybody who comes in has a musculoskeletal problem, and everybody who has a procedure needs rehab. And when I say rehab, that doesn't just mean muscle rehab, that means adjustments to keep the vertebra in alignment from the ligaments they just tightened up. So if you get the right people on your professional network, this, I believe, can get a lot of chiropractors off the drug of needing advertising to drive new unqualified deal shoppers into their practice. Forgive me, but to waste their time and create a lot of busyness, but not a lot of business. And it's just a smart thing to do, because having lots of other professionals that align with you aren't going to steal your patients, know how and when to refer to you, and then build content so it's easier. It's a variety, right? So if I'm a chiropractor and I'm not a specialist in every other category, if somebody on my professional network's a nutritionist, why don't we do programs regularly about nutrition for both audiences? If it's a stem cell specialist about avoiding surgery, why don't we do something regularly to both of our audiences? Acupuncture, personal training, whatever it may be. It actually makes it much easier to create content and expands your audience, expands your distribution of content, as in gets more traffic for free.
Yeah, and what you brought up is the key component, and we'll just use very easy math. If you had 1,000, let's say I'm a chiropractor, I have 1,000 people that follow my Facebook page, right? Just Facebook as a simple example. And I had 9 individuals, which is very attainable. You should be able to have more than that, but just 9 other individuals. And all of them had the same, right? 1,000 people. Now, instead of your potential reach of what you do on your own channel being 1,000, you'd literally go to 10,000. You'd literally 10x your opportunity to reach people by what you said, by hitting both audiences. So it's something that as you build out your professional network, the other thing is the numbers start to become exponential. It's as Stephen Francis would say, 1 + 1 = 11, right? So it's the opportunity to get more traction and more views and more traffic exponentially as it's shared. And the benefit of it as well, it's I've heard this described as the person who has the party is the most popular person. So if you build the professional network, there's also an opportunity that will take on a life of its own, and they will start also cross-posting and understanding, which again, if you are the center of that hub and spoke model, that further positions you as the leader in the space. And that's
a huge component. It's funny, chiropractors love to come up with excuses. We just carry them with us everywhere we go. And one of the excuses is that's work. Then I think about, I hear there's a medical professional, they built this wellness network, but they won't let me in. Why didn't you build yours? How come you didn't direct it and you didn't build it and you weren't the gatekeeper, basically, right? Or, somebody else did it, but they don't quite exactly align with our drug-free philosophy. So you're like, well, I'm not going to join it because it doesn't resonate with me, or I am going to join it, but it's really off-brand, So there's no reason not to be. We keep saying doctor means teacher. Teacher is a mentor. It's somebody that has information. A professional is somebody who professes information. It's not somebody who's an entrepreneur who's like, what's the best way for me to make the most amount of money with the least amount of effort and, go retire somewhere. I'm all for making money, and money is a wonderful thing to get your freedom so that you can live your passion. And if you're a professional, my assumption is you chose to be a professional because you love what you do and you love serving people. If that's not you, this probably isn't the right thing. Go play whatever financial games you've got to. This probably isn't the right circumstance. But it doesn't have to be one or the other. That's the point. We talked about the payday practice previously and so on, is if you start thinking in a fresh way, understanding the new world we're living in, and it's a new world, I don't care what anybody says, everything has changed. And that with that change, with that crisis, as the symbol says comes opportunity. And the opportunity is to really position yourself and your practice as an inspirational place for people that want improved health and well-being. And you don't have to do it by yourself. You can build a team of other like-minded professionals who have similar values and who reach a broader audience. You can do that through using technology, email, social, everything we talked about in this podcast series and more. And if you take one step and put one foot in front of the other, and you start walking and then jogging and then running, the momentum that's built up, it will get you at some point off the addiction to advertising. You will have a full practice from people, again, with our payday practice model. The biggest issue most chiropractors have is they can get new patients, but the hole in the bottom of the bucket is just about as big as the hole in the top of the bucket. And so you constantly have to refill it in order to be able to keep activity going. What if people who came stayed? Not for the pain relief that never goes away, but because they got the experience they were looking for and now understood the other health benefits. When I say stay, that doesn't mean 3 times a week forever. It means, many people's got a dentist. They may not go for the next 6 months. They may not even go to the next crisis, but they got one. Everybody should have, you should be lots of people's chiro. Hopefully you can inspire them to want to be more proactive about it. Hopefully you've got the business models, the communication. You apply what you've hopefully learned in this series. All of these are different pieces of a puzzle that when you put together really shows you a big picture of practicing what you're passionate about in a way that makes you financially free enough to be able to afford to tell the truth and live the life and run the practice you ultimately got into this for. It's doable. It's up to docs to be able to have the blueprint to know what to do. Most chiropractors don't know how. I'm not a builder, but I know how to follow instructions and a blueprint. Hundreds of chiropractors have followed this blueprint to expand into this role in this model. It works if you work it. I have really serious concern for those chiropractors that continue in the future clinging on to the past. And, the dinosaurs, we've all talked about it, it's adapt or die. And if we as a collective profession, if you as an individual chiropractor in your practice don't adapt, you will find significant crisis in times to come. And I don't want to see that happen for people.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's one other thing on professional network that I think is important as we sort of wrap it up, and that's brand. Yeah. So for instance, let's say you're a doc and you're like, I don't really want to do rehab. Well, imagine if you were buddies with the best sports performance center in town. Like, you would get a skim from their brand, so to speak. Wow, he must be great because he talks with these guys.
And we see that happen.
Yeah, and that is a very real thing. So if you, especially, whether you're a new doc or whether you're a veteran and experienced doc, and you're saying, golly, sometimes we hear this a lot. I don't have that many people that follow. No problem. Like, one is more than zero. And very rarely in the healthcare space, this isn't influencer marketing, through Pepsi. They're, very rarely is a doctor going to say, well, I'll only come over and chat with you if you have more than 5,000 followers. I've never heard that happen. So if you can even strategically, you want to pick the people, find your dance partners, pick the people that resonate with you, pick those individuals that you know are going to provide the best clinical care. But there's also this kind of side tangential benefit where, hey, if you pick brands that maybe even are a little bit more established than you, brands that have great patient experience, brands that you're saying, man, they have a really nice practice and a really nice clinic. You might find a friend. You're probably going to find a referral partner, and you are going to get some benefit in the brand space when your patients, your community, their people start to see, not only your people, but their people start to see that there is some form of an affiliation.
Jeff, what you're saying is so important, and it really rounds out this entire 10-episode series. Because, as docs are saying, okay, makes sense, sounds good, I'll build my email list, I'll build my social following, I'll do the things you're talking about, but what's the fastest, easiest way for me to do that? If you think about the largest podcasts out there, the largest YouTube channels that are out there, they're doing one of several things. Either they're doing the yang bang, dramatic clickbait thing, which we don't recommend, or they have been smart. And smart means that by interviewing people with a large following, means you're exposing yourself to that large following, and it ain't an ad. It is an endorsement. And that probably is the fastest way to get people to join your email list, join your social media channels. This is from non-chiropractors, non-health professionals. This is digital marketing 101. Interview influencers who have a following, and you will find your following grow faster than trying to do it on your own.
That's it. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Cooperation is smart. We want to thank you for tuning in all season long, season number 1 of the Smart Chiropractor. And we have broken down how docs can get more predictable and more consistent revenue into their practice. We call it a payday practice. The best thing that you can do for us, our ask of you, is to please give us some feedback or a rating on iTunes. That helps more and more docs find out about this podcast. We're going to go behind the scenes, strategize for season number 2, so keep an eye out for that. And please head over to smartchiropractor.com/genius. You will find an array of smart guides there that can help you market your practice. If what we've talked about has resonated with you and you want to get a little bit more tactical on the ways you can implement this in your practice, head on over to smartchiropractor.com/genius. For Dr. Jason Deitch, I'm Dr. Jeff Langmaid. Thank you for tuning in of season number 1 of the Smart Chiropractor. We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
This episode brought to you by the Smart Chiropractor. At the Smart Chiropractor, we solve the 2 biggest chiropractic marketing challenges, content and consistency. We combine an incredible content library with powerful automation tools to supercharge your marketing. The result? More new patients, more referrals, and more reactivations with automated digital content marketing. Here's what Dr. Matthew Barnhart had to say. "We have loved this. We have already had 5 patient reactivations from the emails in 1 week. To learn more and get started, visit thesmartchiropractor.com today."